Okay, sixth graders, we're starting chapter 8. And in chapter 7, we talked a lot about how to look at numbers or how to analyze numbers. What were some ways that we can analyze numbers? Or a set of data? Using what?
Graphs.
Okay, a graph. But specifically, what are some ways that you can look in or find the central tendency? Yeah, no, we were given a bunch of numbers, and Bryce.
Mean, mode, median.
Okay, exactly. We were talking about the mean, which is the average, the median, which is the what? The middle number, the mode, which is the
most appeared number.
Right, the one that occurs the most often. And then we found one other one, Daria. Put the book away. We found the what? Which is the difference between the highest and the lowest. So we learned about analyzing numbers. Now we're going to talk about putting numbers onto graphs. And the different types of graphs and the advantages or the reasons why we use certain graphs. Alex? So, a double bar graph. A double bar graph compares the results of two different groups. Okay? That's why the graphs, like in your example on page 224, the graphs are right next to each other. So what is this a graph of on page 224? Roy?
A histogram.
No, what is it a graph of? Look
Oh,
at the
a
title.
double line graph.
Look at the title.
Oh, number of CDs in Vanessa's family.
Good, the number of CDs in Vanessa's family. So these are kinds of music and the number of CDs. Okay? And then it compares two different things, the two different colors. What two things does it compare? Brett?
Vanessa and parents.
Okay, so Vanessa's CDs versus her parents' CDs. It's comparing those things, and those things are labeled. Every graph that we're going to look at has to have these things. A title, labels, and some sort of a scale which tells what the numbers mean. Either they're percents, so the numbers are labeled, or they're intervals, which are what, Nate?
The value of each space between the marks.
Right, the value of each space between the marks, that's called an interval on the graph. Not the value of each mark, but the value of each space on the mark. And that's kind of a little bit different. All right? Notice that on the scales, the example of the scales that I show you here, is every mark labeled?
No.
No. No. This one has every other mark labeled. Well, what is the interval?
2, 4, 6,
4.
8.
4.
Is it 4, 2, 6, 10?
Yeah.
Or is it 2 because the interval is the value of each space? It's not the value of each labeled mark. It's the value of each space. Look at this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so this one has, whoops. This one has 2 spaces between the label marks. So this is 2, 4, 6, then 8, 10. Okay? And that's critical to understand that the interval is the value of each space, not the value of each labeled position, each labeled mark. Okay? Because otherwise you'd have a bunch of numbers. We can tell what the interval is without labeling every single mark. Look at the label of this one. There's only one number here. But is that the interval?
No.
No. If we count, the value of each is 1/4.
2/4.
Okay, actually that should be down 1. So this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Oh yeah, this is 4/4. Okay? So that's 1. the value of each space is 1/4 or 0.25, 25 hundredths, okay? So there's a little bit about intervals. Now, double bar graphs and those comparisons, they work really well for comparing two different things. Here's an example that's in your book. And again, double bar graphs are great for showing comparisons of things. Anytime you're showing comparisons of things, well, double bar graphs are best. What about a line graph or a double line graph? What are those used to show?
Like trend increasing or decreasing.
Good, trends. Trends, whether it's going up, it's an upward trend or a downward trend. And specifically, it shows what happens to the numbers over what?
Time.
Over time. Over time. So this case, it's in years. Look at this example. What's happened to the use of CDs versus MP3 music? Or, yeah, CDs in the year 2002 was way more popular than MP3 music because MP3 music was just sort of invented, right? But then, what has happened to CD sales?
Going down.
It's gone down, right? Because this is an easier way to listen to music and listen to more or have more music on one device. And so CD sales as a result has gone down. And that shows the trend over time, doesn't it? Yeah. Let's talk about circle graphs. What are circle graphs specifically used for? Roy.
Saying how much percent of what?
Okay, a percent. What does percent tell us?
How much more people get than other people.
Okay, how much more a group has out of the what? Out of the total. And that's critical when we're talking about circle graphs. It's comparing the number of items, the number of votes, for example, out of the total possible. Out of the total possible. Anytime you are looking at parts out of the total or out of the whole, you'd want to use a circle graph to show that. Okay? And then finally the last one. We'll talk more about this in the next lesson, but a histogram is a bar graph, but it's also a type of, or a way to show a trend as well. So it's kind of like combining a bar graph with a what? What else compares over time? A line graph. Yep. It kind of combines a bar graph with a line graph, and that's called a histogram. Okay? Any questions on those? All right, so that's lesson 1 in this chapter.